Okay, we'll get this meeting started here. Good morning, everybody. We'll do a roll call. I am here. Carol is here. Doug is here. Kirk is here. Emily, you're there online, I see. Anyone else? Ryan online?
No, Emily's the only one.
Hey. And we've got, of course, Brian is here. John Behill is here and Steve Andrews is here. Yeah, I heard her say something about,
Like
she's traveling.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that,
Are you a proud fan today?
Yep. I always am. As long as we have Mahomes, I will be. And that's a long time.
What they do to him at halftime anyway? Who came out a different man?
No, they play that way all the time. If you
No, I
ever-
mean with his ankle.
they taped it up and gave him drugs, the one guy said, so I said, oh, okay, I could play football.
Adrenaline.
Adrenaline, yeah. Local or something.
I don't think they can give him performance enhancing drugs.
No,
Which
probably
adrenaline.
ibuprofen.
Nah,
Maybe a little bit, probably something with a needle, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see, I did send everybody, the latest draft from Kirk. Thank you, Kirk. And that's really, unless we've got other updates, that's really about the only thing we've got on our agenda this morning. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to review that.
and
And
John, I might just mention, this is basically this. A very similar document that I'd sent out that we talked about, I think in December. And then I made some adjustments to the goals as we went through them last week. So this will just be one component of the final report, or not, another report that we submit to the council.
And this has Black Hills and the other report will cover the industrial. I mean,
The other will cover, I'll have a little section on co-ops and one on a municipal utility. So
okay,
it goes through the three options that are out
Okay,
there.
so you have 2 more to go.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, cool.
that'll be the next meeting that I'll present
I'd like to make a comment.
information.
sure.
Kirk, you have a lot of stick-to-itiveness and a lot of determination to stay with this. It's with the time you put in. I admire you.
Well, thank you.
Amen.
Well, this next section is taking a lot of time to go through.
Yeah, well, because it's more speculative than this. This is
Yeah.
this is what it is.
Well, there's a lot of moving pieces to it.
Yeah, I did have a couple of questions, Kirk. Do you-
Yes.
That 2021 rate study,
Uh-huh.
is there any way to bring that more into another year's worth of numbers? So we could be more, have it more today's, well, it'd be 2022 numbers. I don't know if there's any way to plug things in to that.
The reason that I like utilizing this is it's a third party
Well,
source.
true.
You know,
yeah.
it's a third party source and it comes from someone else and not coming from me.
Right.
Trying to extrapolate data that I might not understand.
And the PUC staff has everybody's phone number and
Right.
email to get that information.
Oh, sure.
We don't, they have a little more clout with those people, you know?
Yeah, I can.
What do you
understand
regulate
that.
them?
Okay,
Yeah.
and then I just had one other comment about the, Black Hills operations. Did you add the new transmission line and the new substation?
He did.
Okay.
If you take a look
So-
at the, under operations, 1, 2, 3, 4, the fourth paragraph.
Uh-huh,
There's something about the Black Hills Energy's building a second 39-mile single circuit transmission line.
okay, is that online, John?
It is mostly operational. I think they are going to test the Penrose substation. I think this week, maybe. It's soon.
Okay,
It's soon. I have actually a meeting about that today at 3:30.
okay. Well, I was late. You didn't go back to your previous report, so.
Would it be accurate, John, if I would put which should be functional in 2023?
That would be accurate.
That way,
Yeah,
I'll add that in there.
okay,
Okay, North Canyon, East Canyon, South Canyon, Canyon plant, which is the substation on the, up on 8 Mile Hill, kind of. Is that included in the mills?
Just at the bottom of the hill here, Carol? The new
Well-
substation?
Yeah, up toward Skyline turnoff or
Yeah,
up that way.
yeah.
Is that included in those 4?
This, I'm not exactly sure
Okay.
which,
It's
What
the
all-
one that's part way up the hill, like
Right, right,
halfway up. So I wasn't sure that was in there.
yeah.
John, do you have any idea when it will be put to use?
Which one?
The one out here
The
west
hog-
of town?
The Hogback substation?
so that,
I believe that's live already.
so there's a
There-
hogback substation,
Yes,
and that's not one of these.
that's correct.
Yeah, and
So
so,
Hogback and Penrose were both built
yes.
2022.
So
do
those
we need to include those two then?
we should.
Hogback,
Hogback, that's energized, that's the one up
yeah,
50 towards the top of the hill. And then the Penrose is ditto, the one up 115 towards the top of the hill. Up the bottom side of Penrose.
now are both, I wasn't really listening, are both of those functional right now?
The Hogback is Penrose's, I believe, testing this week. But they will be operational 2023.
Okay, so I'd be safe putting that, those
Yeah,
two are
and-
functional.
And I believe it's supposed to be this month in 2023, so this is the last phase is the testing of the
Okay.
Penrose sub, unless something happens during testing.
Okay, thank you. I'll add that, I'll put that in with the substations too then. So those are your two new substations.
Correct.
Yeah, Steve,
Kirk, did you get the suggested minor edits I sent
Why
on?
don't you bring them up what you had suggested so that everybody can hear?
One of them was, right there on the first page, rate determination made. It says state PUC. I would say that's the interaction of the state PUC, Black Hills Energy,
so
and stakeholders.
page 2,
Page 1.
page 2.
I'm looking at,
Oh, you're.
Oh, you're
okay,
in the
okay,
chart.
at the
Okay,
chart.
gotcha.
Okay, what, now,
So where are we?
start over again then, Steve.
so instead of the words state PUC, well, you can leave those in, but I would add interaction of. And then state PUC, BHE. And stakeholders. Stakeholders includes the Office of Consumer Counsel. It includes the Canyon City, if Canyon City would, or Pueblo, or whoever wants to intervene in a rate case. And Pueblo and others down the city have done that. But the state PUC, it is an interactive process. The state PUC just doesn't dictate the prices. It's a negotiation.
And they take testimony and
Yeah,
all that kind of
yeah,
stuff.
witnesses, yeah. So I would say it's a very interactive process. And then,
So it'd be,
So-
you're saying that this interactive with the state
It's,
PUC Black.
he's got, what he's got is interaction of the state PUC, interaction of the
state
state
PUC,
PUC, Black
comma,
BHE.
BHE, comma, and stakeholders.
Okay, stakeholders, that,
Yeah,
And not only VHE is, I mean, you could add Excel as an for our purposes, it's Black Hills.
For our purposes, it's just Black Hills.
Right,
Where this
right.
is, remember, this is something that
Yeah.
deals with Black Hills.
Oh, of course, yeah.
In sort of a related point, the last paragraph on page 2. It says the PUC is the state agency that makes the decision on what prices they consider, I would say the final decision. Because
Okay.
again, there's an interactive process there.
Where's that, Steve?
That's the last paragraph on page 2.
Okay,
The last sentence where it says decision, I would put the word final in front of it.
Okay,
oh, okay.
And Emily, as we're talking along here, don't bother with raising your hand, just jump in, you know,
but she's having trouble talking.
yeah.
Exactly. You might not hear me.
And then this is all sort of on the same theme, the second paragraph on page 3. The last sentence, it says, once again, the PUC decides what types of investments are prudent. I would say PUC, instead of decides, it has the final say in.
Okay,
That means. Because Black Hills is really proposing.
Yeah.
Again,
thank you, Steve.
you know, and. I had a couple of verbiage things that,
Bring them up. Well, you bring them up, now's the
okay,
time.
Or forever hold your peace.
okay, a single transmission line. It's
Where,
about-
where you at?
I'm on page 3, about 2/3 of the way down. The paragraph starts with
Yeah,
a single transmission line that runs south of Canyon City parallel to, I would say, and parallel, because it runs south of Canyon City, but it is parallel to the, because I was thinking it doesn't run south out of Canyon City, and then I realized, oh, it's south and parallel, and just for clarity.
Okay,
And the last thing I had was on.
well,
the
hang,
last-
hang on before we go, so I'll jump in here because I have a comment on that sentence too.
Yes.
Okay, so we have a single transmission line that runs south of Canyon City and parallel. The Arkansas River currently brings power to the city. Because it doesn't really power the city, it brings the power to the
That's
city.
correct.
Oh,
Unless you want to go back to the 60s and 70s and power to the people, power to the city, something like that.
The, which we will have to bring back Buffalo Springfield too. you know?
And bell bottoms all on that.
Been there, done that.
Remember Frisco jeans?
Okay, what else you got?
The last page, the title for the page, it says goals for Black Hills Energy. Really, I think that's goals continuing with.
Okay, so we'll talk about that because I have some comments there. And
Okay.
that'll get so hold on to that thought. And when we get back to there, we can, that's appropriate. Because there's some discussion I think we need to have there.
Okay.
And I have a couple of comments also. So on bottom of page 2, the next to the last paragraph, the last sentence. The larger the amount of assets in the rate base increases, I think it's the rates paid by increases the rates paid by the customers, that period.
Where was that at, John? I don't see that.
Yeah, just delete higher.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I have
And
to
I
actually.
would put the.
Second page, John.
Uh-huh.
Last
Increases
paragraph, next
the
last
rates paid by
paragraph.
customers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
The very last where it says paid by customers higher, just delete.
yeah,
higher.
that.
Just
that's what we're
tired,
doing.
yeah, I have the same thing.
Yeah,
Why didn't you
Oh,
bring
sure.
it up?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Oh, sure.
I had a couple things I skipped over that I thought were just sort of
Well,
not important, really
but
important.
it is important.
Okay,
okay, on page 3, the, in the middle there, it starts generation comes and ends up talking about renewables with the up to 80% 2030. I understand that slipping, that I heard from Stephanie Luck that they're already changing that and they're looking at like 2034 or something like that. I don't know if you have any information on that. But, you know, Stephanie's in the legislature and so I understand that goal is slipping. But if that's what it is right now, that's fine. I don't have any problem with that, but we should realize ourselves that probably that's gonna change through legislative action.
Would it be better to put something possibly by 2030?
I can say, if you wanted, you could say, if you wanted to acknowledge that it's not permanent yet, you could say currently in
Yeah.
2030.
Yeah.
I'm not aware of anything that's changed that goal though. Current, it is even in
Yes.
proposed legislation.
Well, the could be what she's hearing is chatter. You know, but so I. You know, if that's of concern to Black Hills, I would follow up with your guys, lobbyists. But that's my understanding, is that that's probably gonna change.
So if I put something like this, John,
Mhm.
Colorado's mandate for renewable sources will currently go up to 80%.
So that works for great,
So that
yeah.
it leaves a little bit of room for change
Or mandate is currently set to go to that, maybe, I don't know.
So we were required to either provide a plan or demonstrate how we were gonna get to 80%
Yes.
by 2030.
By the
And that is-
PUC.
And that is currently in front of, and as the city intervened in, our clean energy plan is currently waiting to complete the settlement process to hit that 80% by 2030. So
And it
from
could,
that perspective, I don't know that that's changed.
and it could be that what I'm hearing is that so that's a goal for the electric utility. But there's also a goal for the state.
So the state's goals may,
Yeah, and that's why I'm saying, you know, PUC has been directed to give you guys a goal of this goal right here. Right, that is the goal you guys have through the PUC, correct?
yeah, and the goal is actually, now that I'm reading this, I apologize, but it says for renewable resources, the goal is actually carbon emissions reduction.
Good point.
And
carbon,
Kirk, if you would like a little bit more information on that, I can provide that to you.
but you
Carbon-
recommend carbon reduction.
Carbon emissions.
emission.
Yeah, from a 2005 baseline to 80%, so reducing 80% by 2030 from that
And that could
2005
include, that
baseline.
could include demand side management and other things, not just renewable resources. That's
Yeah.
why it's carbon.
Right.
Carbon emission, what, John?
Carbon emissions reductions.
Reductions, thank you.
Thanks, John.
Mhm.
And in the world of grammatically correct, there,
Hold on just a second. I'm still making stuff.
He's like, I'm
Hold on,
rewriting my paper, my term paper.
just so I can understand myself. Okay,
on page 2, the paragraph right above the box there, you have, in the second line, you have the rate averages, when in fact it's a 2021 rate study, therefore it averaged its past tense because it
Okay.
is no longer averaging 16.38. And the same thing in the next sentence, this residential rate was instead of is. And that's everything, soup to nuts that I have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Currently.
Correct.
I appreciate that, because when you start looking at this stuff,
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Your
Absolutely.
eyes start crossing.
Yeah. It all looks the same, yeah.
Yeah.
it's like, oh.
Now, something under Black Hills operations. If that's on page 3, if we look back at rate determination. What we talk about is generation fleet, transmission assets, distribution network. Now, not all of those are owned by Black Hills Energy, the provider of electric, the entity that bills us for electric services here in Canyon City, right? Is that right?
Which,
So I'm looking, so we're talking about here under rate determination, the generation fleet, transmission assets, the distribution network, and other times assets such as pension plans. And what my understanding is, and correct me if I've gone off base here, but what my understanding is that the entity that sends us an electric bill is not the entity that owns all of those things.
True-ish, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, there are gonna be, we are gonna use transmission lines that are not, 100% owned in situations. Generation is not 100% owned by us. There are some purchase power agreements. So yeah, I guess there's some truth to that.
so
So,
John, are you
so-
going to the difference between Black Hills Energy and Black Hills Corp? Is that where you're going or no?
well, yes,
Okay.
because there,
Okay.
the actual shakedown of the
Mhm.
different entities of who owns what
Right.
is kind of like who's on first.
Mm.
And it's my understanding that the PAGS is not owned by
Right.
the entity that sends us our electric bills.
Right.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Half of PAGS is owned by Black Hills, Colorado.
Well, but.
Not by COE.
Colorado
Black
is
Hills.
not the
Yeah,
one
that's
that
right,
sends us the
not
bill.
by COE. not
See, and
Colorado.
that, to me, that's an important distinction. And is important for us to make in this review. And so what I'm suggesting is that on page 3, under Black Hills operations, I think that because I think that we looked at that before. I think Kirk, I say we, I think Kirk, that you have already put your thumb on some of those differences in some of the previous papers. Now, having said that, it's I don't want to blow this thing up to add another 10 pages while we discuss all.
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to do here was with the Black Hills, because we went into it so extensively, is just to give an overview of what's involved in the process of looking at it. And
Sure.
I didn't,
Sure,
my intention here I was just utilizing the rate base that includes, that was right from the PUC study.
sure.
And just stating that in determining rates, they'll look at the operating costs, plus they'll look at the rate base. And these are some of the things that compose the rate base. And I really wasn't my intention to go really deep into that at this point.
But I think it's important that we acknowledge the distinction and the difference. And that we just have some words in here as a placeholder, maybe for the bigger study. Maybe we can refer to it, and say, hey, for a more complete discussion of the corporate structure of Black Hills.
So maybe the better suggestion here, I'm just looking at that generally that statement looks factual. What if you just footnote it? Footnote it as the source it. That way you could source back to the original document. I mean, that might be the best way to make that a clear. I mean, I think generally that statement is because it says, which allows us to include the operating, as well as the base rate includes such things as generation, transmission assets. So it doesn't say everything that serves this community, just, such things as. So I think it technically is probably factual.
So, but my real comment is on page 3. And I think that we need to have a little paragraph in there that acknowledges that the Black Hills corporate empire is various and diverse, and that the entity that sends us bills is not necessarily the entity that takes care of transmission.
Okay, I could probably put a little bit of stuff about how the hierarchy, a little bit, maybe 2-3 paragraphs to
Sure.
explain that a little bit. I think I see where you're coming from.
Yeah,
there.
to me, the important part is that the entity that sends us our electric bill is not necessarily the entity that has assets.
Well,
Although
and
they do, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that, but there are other assets that are used in what goes into our bill. But there's a difference here, and that, to me, that's important.
but it is also true that Black Hills Energy does not have a great amount of autonomy. They pretty much do what Black Hills Corp tells them to do. you will tell the PUC that these are your assets, that this is what it's costing you for just for generation, therefore Black Hills Energy, working with the state of Colorado PUC, that's what Black Hills Energy is saying they've got to have to make a profit for Black Hills Corp.
Understand your point.
Okay,
Generally, when you have a corporate umbrella,
yeah,
so you have a corporation, then you have a lot
Holding
of
company.
wholly owned
Yeah.
subsidiaries.
right.
That's,
Underneath it.
I'll bring
Yeah.
something like that in there because it is a very unique business structure
Yeah, it
of
makes a
having a holding
difference, too.
company and having all of the,
On our bottom line,
companies.
it makes a difference.
so I will try to put something together, maybe maybe what I can do is make some of these corrections. And then I'll send it to you, John, and if you want to take a look at it,
Okay,
and if you have
sure.
recommendations, and then maybe we send it.
Everyone's sure.
Once we send it,
Okay.
then we can send it out to the committee
Okay.
to take a look at, but I
Sure.
see where you're coming from. there.
Yeah.
It is a important distinction to make.
Okay,
There's a possibility to maybe include this, or John, and pretty simply, but I'm not sure, and still footnoted as John Beal suggested. The second sentence under the first paragraph under BHE operations, the second sentence there, you could say Black Hills BHE is a vertically integrated utility, which means they provide generation, transmission, strike out the word and, distribution, and purchase power agreements with BHC, Black Hills Corporation, and others.
Hmm.
That way it opens up and mentions the other entities without going into necessarily a separate paragraph on it.
I think it's important to have the holding company in
Yeah.
there. Because,
so we'll,
But
Because-
and maybe both.
So I'm
Yeah.
saying, yeah, Black Hills Corporation and others, because our, they do business on the purchase power side, sure, both selling and.
okay,
and-
go back and give me what you.
Sure, strike the word and.
Yes,
And then distribution and purchase power agreements. With Black Hills Corporation and others, or I put BHC, you can put Black Hills Corporation, whatever, and others.
So
That opens the can of worms. It doesn't necessarily fully display.
I think we still need a little bit of
Yes,
structure.
yes,
And so that's my other recommendation, rather than call it Black Hills operations, I call it Black Hills structure.
okay.
Because that's what we're trying to get to
Okay.
here, is
Yeah.
what, who's on first stuff.
Should I ask about my wording things before we move on to the last page, or what works
Sure.
best?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Okay, page 2, and I hope you can hear me. Second paragraph on page 2. I just wanted to verify if the wording was correct in there where it talks about the PUC approving franchise agreements and other things. Does that read okay to folks?
Where at, Emily? I'm sorry.
That's at the
Second.
top of page 2, second
Second line.
paragraph,
Second sentence.
second sentence. I don't think they approved, I don't think they approved the franchise agreement.
They actually,
just-
they actually do.
They actually do.
Yeah, once franchises are signed, we have to send them
You have to send it to.
for
them.
their approval, and they're not in effect until the
Okay,
PUC.
Yeah. okay.
Do-
so that's-
Do they ever disapprove, I wonder?
Not typically when you've got a,
You got election behind it.
well, when they're not all elections, some of them are just done through city ordinance.
Sure.
And so like as an example, I've approved 3 this year,
Right,
3 last year, excuse me.
Town of Brookside, I think is one of them.
Yeah,
Anyway.
Brookside, Bay Sugar City.
Lawrence, maybe.
Yeah, Florence didn't have to go to a vote. That was a couple years ago, I think. Anyway, okay, that was one of my questions. Let's see. I'm moving on. I'm trying to read through all my notes here. On page 4, under BHE agreements, the second paragraph under BHE agreements, where it says the franchise grants the utility the right to serve customers. I don't think that's really accurate as far as what a franchise does, but I'm open to input on that.
You're correct, Emily. A franchise is an operating agreement between the city and the utility. Just really dictates the right of way,
Right,
use of the right of way. That's all it does.
That grants the utility right away.
It governs the utilities use of the right of way.
right. That's a good way to say it. Governs the utilities use.
So what do you want to strike then?
To serve in the city's
Yeah, to serve the customers in the city's jurisdiction.
So between municipality and electric service provider, period.
Yes.
Okay,
And then I've got some wording in the next one to help.
and then the next sentence is correct.
No,
The agreements commonly, no, that's not.
well, I've got some wording.
Okay,
Got some wording on it, because it's not quite right. Okay. So we're gonna say electric service provider, period, then these agreements commonly include stipulations regarding the city's right of way for utilities to install and maintain electric service. I would say these agreements commonly include stipulations regarding the city's right of way that. So strike 4, put in that utilities, and then insert use to install and maintain electrical infrastructure.
Okay.
That works.
okay.
And then on that same page, the second to the last paragraph, and I think this word is also used in that goals page, the next page, but second to the last paragraph on page 4, city or Canyon City should also work with local communities. I'm wondering if we shouldn't word that differently, regional, or it's not necessarily just local.
Well, page 4, the second to the last sentence.
Or
Yeah,
just-
you're in the right place.
Or just other,
Second
maybe,
last
Emily,
paragraph.
other.
Could be, yeah, could be just other.
Yes, sentence two,
Same
yeah.
thing.
And then we don't have to worry about the geography of it if we just say other, yeah.
In now with the
So
Canyon City.
should also work with
Not local.
regional,
Other.
Other
regional.
communities.
Other communities.
Is that what she said?
Yeah,
Okay.
I
Other
said it, but
communities.
Yeah,
Emily.
I'll take Carol's word. And it's the same wording on the last page under number 5. We might want to change it there too.
Oh, yeah.
I was thinking I had one more, but let me see if I can spot it. Maybe that was it. Yeah, I think that was it.
okay, any other comments on pages 1 through 4? Okay, so I on our last page, goals for Black Hills Energy. What I think we should do here, is because the issue is where we see various actors doing things, right? And what this would present better to me is like a Excel table or a table where you had each line, and then you said whether it was the committee or city council or Canyon City staff or some combination. So you'd have like 4 or 5 columns where you would say, under the city website, is that the responsibility of the city or city staff? Because we would not be accessing the website directly. We'd be asking for permission to use the website to do things. And so calling out whose responsibility, who's the owner kind of that area, I think would be important.
And at this point in time, with the time crunch,
Mhm.
I don't know that I have time to do that.
Okay, You want me to take a shot at it?
Yeah, and
Sure.
and some of it really, as we talked last time, some of it boils down to what the council wants too.
Oh,
I
that's
mean,
exactly.
You know,
Yeah, yeah. And
Once
so
we
this
get
is our
some-
view.
once we get some input from the council, then I think you could put together a table that would be a little bit more specific according to what their wishes might be.
It'll be a lot easier if we tell them what we think it should be, and then they can say yes or no, or we think this or whatever.
But did you have that document, John, that you sent around last time with the?
Oh, the
Yeah, it
action
looks like a
matrix.
crosswalk thing, a matrix,
I
yeah,
brought that.
You
from the
brought that.
From the
okay.
city plan.
Oh, right.
when We did the.
Is that,
master
that's what
plan.
you're talking about, John? Something like that?
Well, yeah, I'm talking, yes, I know what you're talking about. You're
The
talking
Kirk
about,
Front.
yeah.
For the
So,
planning,
Right.
from city
That,
planning.
so that what that document was, just to be clear, that was the document that was produced by the city's consultant that showed what particular action item was whose responsibility and when, it's gonna be easier, hard,
Yeah, yeah.
all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
But they did that after extensive meetings with both the planning commission, the city council,
Public
and
outreach.
public outreach, and with city staff. So there was a lot of input
Mm.
that was put into that. And maybe what we could do, John,
Uh-huh.
is we could include something written like that. And then we can also include some type of an Excel spreadsheet like what you have.
We can kind of steal that template.
Yeah, and say,
So let me take a shot at it.
yeah, yeah.
And then we can look at it. and
Yeah,
decide,
because
does this work or not, or whatever.
Because I'm not gonna have time right
Sure.
now with,
No problem.
with looking at the next phase,
I
the
can do
next
it.
couple weeks. Yeah, that would
I
be
can do it.
helpful. But I think ultimately that's what you wanna have,
Mhm.
is something like that, that gives you.
Yeah.
You know,
But that-
identifies what things we're gonna use, who's gonna do it, and, you know, how does it all.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And then we have, and then if council votes to approve that table or some action like that, I mean, I don't know that we've thought through exactly what that's gonna look like or whatever, but if, for instance, one of the outcomes is a council voted to approve that table, then we would have our clear direction of what
Yes.
we're supposed to do.
Yes.
when,
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, if you could do that, that'd be good.
Okay,
You like putting together spreadsheets like that too.
I have been a constant user of spreadsheets.
So that would work out great.
My input had to do with the title.
Yeah,
I was trying to think of a better way to do it, and I'm not sure what it is.
Well, what about the title on the previous document, goals and objectives for Black Hills Energy Option?
No,
No, you don't like that?
no,
Okay.
at least, I mean, doesn't mean that you can't go that way.
No,
It's just
no, I-
what, it doesn't quite get the point I'm trying
Okay,
to
all right.
make, which is, for starters, they aren't goals for Black Hills Energy.
No,
right.
Right, so actions, input, or process, something like that. That's what you're trying to achieve here, I think. If continuing with Black Hills Energy, I think that's something like that is what you're
So,
trying to communicate on this page.
so what this would be is a responsibility matrix.
Sure.
And because it's gonna delineate multiple responsibilities, for instance, we're gonna say, hey, Canyon City Council, we think this is your responsibility. And then they'll figure it out or whatever. No.
So that really actually, if you just put responsibility matrix to some degree, I mean, that's lingo, but it also says what this is, you know. For working with Black Hills or something
for
like that,
evaluating,
or. No,
No?
it's not evaluating, it's ongoing actions and
This,
process.
this is
Oh,
gonna be,
all
this is
right,
gonna be a
okay,
roadmap.
okay.
It's
Yeah.
This will-
It's
this
a
is
RACI
gonna-
is what it is.
Hmm?
It's a RACI. Check table, RACI, who's responsible, accountable,
Oh,
you know,
gotcha.
all those things.
yeah,
I just want to mention, specifically in 8A. You know, you're calling out that reduced cost of debt, and I understand where that came from. But doesn't that all generally fall under intervening in PUC proceedings? I mean, even the report suggested you can't take that single line item and add up, you can't do single issue rate making. So it's all tied into the rate making process. And so 8A, it doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense for it to stand alone in this document.
Unless you put it, for example.
The reason it was put there is if you read the first line, it says evaluate rate relief options for PUC rate study.
I
And that was
understand
a
that, but
recommendation from the,
no, it wasn't a recommendation. They said
If
this
you
is
read
one
it.
thing you could look at, but if that's called single issue rate making, and that's not allowable under.
but it was under the
It's in the
study.
market, sir.
It was taken from the PUC
I
study. if you
understand
read the
where it came
study.
from. It's just saying that
That's
you can't,
why it was put there.
just saying you can't do anything about that in and of itself. You would have to intervene in the PUC proceeding of rate making. There's no way to address that singly. And
And-
so,
But I think that's what that's saying, isn't it? The way I look at it, it says at the next rate case, advocate for or whatever. So I mean, it could be reworded perhaps, but I think it's getting at what you're saying, John. In other words, nobody's saying there's going to be a rate case that only addresses that.
yeah, I understand. It just seems like it's a static piece, look at where interest rates are today from where they were 5 years ago. There's just so much there that it seems interesting to leave it as a single standalone piece, but it's the committee's decision. I'm just making an observation.
Thank you for that, John. Thank you for that. And it may, as when I get this in the responsibility matrix, that may wash out. I mean, it may end up not being, not causing you to want to comment so much.
Of
Which is
course,
all right.
we'll see what the committee does with your work too, John Hamrick. In other words, we'll review that too.
You bet. Okay, anybody else have anything else for us?
I did think of one more thing, just right in that same section on the last page, number 8. And I think that's supposed to be B, right, or second A or B.
Yeah.
I just wondered about the wording there, follow legislation efforts for community choice energy to see if it offers any potential for future rate relief. I don't know, we might say electricity cost relief, just so we're not, because I don't think that would fit into PUC rate cases. I could be wrong. Maybe it's, I don't know, as long as we keep the wording general, we won't go off track there.
Gotcha. Okay. Does anybody have anything else?
Nice work. Pretty concise.
Yeah.
Mhm,
A lot going into it.
Huh?
A lot
mhm.
went into it.
Yeah. I do have something else, just I was going to provide more of an update today, but since I can't talk very well, I'll keep it real brief. I don't know if anyone else has been doing this, but there's been some interesting developments at the PUC, and this is just my opinion. I sat in on a couple of their recent Wednesday morning discussion meetings where you can just tune in online and listen to their discussion. Between that and the public comment session they had a couple of weeks ago that was mostly about Excel complaints, but it really is more, it's a more general topic. There's a lot of what people were complaining about that relates to how investor-owned utilities are regulated by the PUC. And now the governor, I don't know that I've seen the actual list, but I think the governor weighed in and gave a list to the PUC and to other state agencies, I think, of things he wants them to look at in the way of helping relieve people with their electricity and gas costs. Of course, in Excel's case, most people I think who are served by Excel get both gas and electricity. And so there's a lot going on there right now. I think that it's worth following because I don't know where any of this will go. I know one of the things that the commission is doing, they're taking a closer look at disconnections for reasons of non-payment of bill. And they're doing that with, I assume with, any or either of the investor-owned utilities. They're asking for data. I think their staff is going to provide data more frequently, like monthly, instead of what it's been, I don't know, quarterly, annually, whatever the mix has been. So they're wanting to take a closer look at what those numbers look like, and are they being impacted by these high costs this winter that so many Xcel customers have seen. So anyway, I just bring that all up to say that I think the commission, which has now got a new member on it as of last week, John Gavin retired, and Tom Plant was nominated by the governor and approved by the Senate, I presume, because he was in the meeting last Wednesday. And it just sounds to me like the three current commissioners are taking this all very seriously. And where it will all go, I don't know, but they, it may involve just more general things about how investor-owned utilities are regulated. So I just say stay tuned, and it is interesting to tune into those meetings Wednesday morning and take a look. They are making improvements, I'll say, to the website. I'm finally able to find some things that I couldn't find in the past. So they seem to be making an effort to do better engagement with the public and with customers. But definitely the complaints from Xcel customers have really gotten the attention of the PUC and the governor and others. So stay tuned on that. That's all I had on that.
Emily, were those complaints put forward by, I want to say citizens groups or
Citizens,
activists?
period, citizens.
Just citizens?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was, when I listened in, I forget the date, it was a couple of weeks ago, I listened into the 2 sessions of public comments that came in through a Zoom meeting, and it was not just the cost. I mean, Xcel customers are claiming their bills have doubled and tripled. I think the PUC believes that the higher cost of gas this winter is one of the big factors, plus we are having a colder winter. But there were other things that customers talked about, things like, I put solar panels on my house last year and I can't get Xcel to come do what they have to do to get us connected in. And so they have these panels they've paid for sitting on their house that they can't benefit from for like 6 months or more. I don't even know what the longest was. And there's other complaints like that. So it was just, I mean, people were really angry. And, we have to remember that there's many times more Xcel customers in the state than there are Black Hills. It's 1.5 million Xcel customers, I believe. So certainly the size of that beast gets the attention of people like the governor and the regulators, when perhaps the same kinds of complaints from our service territory, people go, huh, what? So anyway, stay tuned on all of that. I don't think it's going to get lost in the shuffle. There are just too many people angry about what they're seeing on their bills this year. Interestingly, when we looked at our Xcel bill in Breckenridge, it wasn't double or triple last winter. It hadn't changed that much. The gas bill was higher, but electricity really wasn't. So I don't know what that's all about. It's almost as if people are having different experiences in different places.
May I share something with the group?
Sure.
So I asked our energy efficiency coordinator, Patty, to just give me some stats. She shared with me that we currently have 14 projects in Canyon City that are going through our small business direct install program. So as you recall, our energy efficiency programs that target small businesses. There are 14 current active ones that should be complete by the end of the first quarter. It's a mix of a number of different entities. I see a variety. I can't share names with you, but I can share sizes, and it's all sizes. It's everything from individual, property owners to larger institutions. But total rebate dollars, $170,561. The projects will result in 540,947 kilowatt hours in savings. And that's annual usage savings in the amount of $70,325. And the CO2 reductions will be 377 metric tons, which is equal to 74 homes that are powered for a single year. So that's what's happening in Canyon City through the energy efficiency program right now.
Say the dollar amount again in savings.
Dollar amount in savings, annual, excuse me, annual usage savings, $70,325. And that is, I believe, as you recall, Unbridled Holdings was in the paper recently. There was an uptick in activity after that story ran. And so that was a really nice piece. That's something we'll probably do another. We'll try and work with Canyon City, see if we can put an op-ed or something so we can get even more visibility to those programs because they're working very well.
Is the city one of those 14?
If you'll allow me to say, the
Yes.
city is, yes.
So maybe a story around what the city's doing.
I've loved that idea. I love the concept of, giving the city credit for being a good tax steward of taxpayer dollars. I think that would benefit all of your constituents because you're getting kind of a double bonus. So
And you let everybody know what's going on.
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
important.
These here are actually part of that program,
The lights.
the lights.
Hmm.
The Pueblo City, county building a few years ago did a really interesting thing. They put a seasonal ice storage in for cooling. And it dramatically lowered their bills. This is seasonal, this isn't daily.
So this is like a nice house,
Yeah,
like the old.
I don't know the details of it, but it was one of those things that I knew
In concept,
that the Pueblo chieftain should have written up.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because it saved a lot of money.
So basically they froze water in the winter and then used that for cooling through in the warm months, as they could.
It had something to do along those lines. It doesn't sound like it's feasible, as in you'd have to have a damn big pool to do that, and yet somehow they were pulling that off. I don't know how.
Freeze that much,
Interesting.
so.
Some cities could use their snow removal maybe and store that somewhere. I can see steamboat.
Store it, right?
Yeah, oh, yeah, there was snow on the
Yeah,
ground.
wintertime you have free energy stored.
To store, yeah, but in the summertime.
No, it's heat pump, it'd be really easy to,
Yeah.
it's like a geothermal heat pump. You could, I don't know, again, I don't know the details of it. I just knew, boy, that's a good story. And as a writer, I used to write things like that up.
Yeah, was that just a one-time thing, or is it
Yeah, it
ongoing?
was always, and it was a pricey retrofit.
Oh, yeah,
It's retrofit, so it's ongoing.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Wow, interesting.
Okay. Any other business before us? Then we are adjourned. Thank you, Emily.